The first sound was a lie. It wasn't thunder, not the clean, cracking report that split the sky and promised rain. This was a deeper sound, a groan that came from the bones of the mountain itself. Finn, all of 12 years old and weighing less than his own tattered backpack, felt it in his teeth before he heard it with his ears. He was huddled in his lean-to, a pathetic assembly of scavenged corrugated tin and pine boughs wedged into a rock outcropping overlooking the winding mountain pass. It was his castle, his fortress against a world that had long since decided he was disposable. From his vantage point, he watched the lone car, a vintage blue sedan, clawing its way up the grade, its tires spinning uselessly against the fresh, slick snow. The driver was a woman. He could see her silhouette, her head turning anxiously as if searching for a way to will the car forward. The groan intensified, a planetary grinding of stone and ice. The trees on the high ridge shivered, not from the wind, but from the shuddering of their own roots. Finn knew that sound. He'd lived in these mountains long enough to know their language. It was the hungry sound, the sound of gravity reclaiming its own. He watched helpless as a white wave, a monstrous, silent serpent of snow and debris, uncoiled from the peak. It didn't crash down. It flowed, an unstoppable river of white death, and the blue sedan disappeared beneath its tide. For a heartbeat, the world was utterly silent, the mountains hunger-sated. Then Finn moved. He wasn't a hero. Heroes had homes to go back to. He was just a boy who knew what it was like to be buried, to be forgotten. He grabbed the only tool he had, a rusted tire iron he'd found on the roadside, and scrambled down the rocks, his thin jacket no match for the biting wind. The avalanche had swept across the road, a 30-foot wall of packed snow, splintered trees, and rock. The car was gone, completely entombed. Panic, cold and sharp, tried to seize him, but he beat it back. He remembered the last place he saw it, near that crooked pine. He started digging, his small hands raw in seconds, the tire iron a clumsy shovel. He clawed at the snow, his breath coming in ragged, steaming clouds. It was like digging into concrete. Minutes felt like hours. His muscles screamed. Just as despair began to whisper its poison in his ear, the iron struck something hard with a metallic clang. Glass. He cleared the snow frantically, revealing the rear windshield. Inside, a shape, unmoving. He hammered the tire iron against the tempered glass, the impacts jarring his entire arm. Its spiderweb then shattered. He cleared the shards away with his sleeve, ignoring the sting as the glass sliced his skin. He wriggled through the opening, into the crushed, silent interior. The woman, Clara, was slumped against the steering wheel, a trickle of blood matting her blonde hair. Her breathing was shallow, and she was pregnant, her belly a round, perfect sphere under her winter coat. A fierce, protective instinct he didn't know he possessed surged through him. He couldn't move her alone, but he couldn't leave her. He checked her pulse, a faint, thready beat. He unbuckled her, the mechanism stiff and cold. He tried to pull her, but she was dead weight. He scrambled back out, his mind racing. Fire. Warmth. He ran back to his lean-to, grabbing his pitifully small bundle of dry kindling and his Zippo, a relic left behind by his father. He returned to the car and, with numb fingers, managed to spark a tiny flame in a sheltered hollow he dug near the car's exposed door. He fed it twigs, then larger branches, nursing it into a small, defiant fire. He draped his own blanket over her, as best he could through the broken window, then huddled by the fire, a small, lonely guardian against the vast, indifferent cold, praying someone would come. Ryker, president of the Hells Angels Mountain chapter, felt the world shrinking down to a single, jagged point of terror. Clara was gone. She was just supposed to take his old sedan to the mechanic in the next town, a simple 2-hour round trip. 4 hours ago. Now the pass was closed, the radio chattering about an avalanche. Every call to her phone went straight to a dead, mocking voicemail. He was pacing the clubhouse floor like a caged wolf, the scent of stale beer and old leather doing nothing to calm the storm inside him. His knuckles were white where he gripped his own phone. Anything, he snarled at Grizz, his sergeant-at-arms, a bear of a man whose beard seemed to contain its own weather system. Grizz shook his massive head, his face grim. State troopers have the road blocked. Said it's suicide to go up there. They won't even send a search party till morning. Ryker slammed his fist on the oak bar, rattling a row of glasses. Morning? My wife and my unborn son are up there. We're not waiting for morning. He grabbed his cut, the leather vest that was his second skin. The Reaper logo on the back, a promise of violence. He was fully prepared to unleash on the mountain itself, if he had to. Saddle up. We're going. They rode as far as the police barricade, the chrome on their Harleys gleaming under the harsh floodlights. The trooper who stepped forward was young, his face a mask of professional sympathy that did nothing to soothe Ryker's rage. Sir, I can't let you pass. The area is unstable. Ryker swung off his bike, his sheer presence making the trooper take an involuntary step back. That's my wife's car buried up there. You can either move your vehicle, or I will. Just as the standoff was about to escalate, Ryker's phone buzzed. A blocked number. He answered with a bark. What? The voice on the other end was small, trembling, broken by chattering teeth. Is this Clara's husband? Ryker's blood ran cold. Who is this? Where is she? She's hurt. The car is buried. I got her out. We're by the road. There's a fire. The voice gave a shaky description of a location. A place Ryker knew well, a jagged outcropping just past Dead Man's Curve. Stay with her, Ryker commanded, his voice suddenly raw with desperate hope. Do not leave her. We're coming. He looked at the trooper, his eyes blazing with an intensity that could melt steel. A kid just called. He has my wife. He pulled her from the wreckage. Now, are you going to help me, or are you going to get out of my way? The trooper saw the truth in those eyes, a truth more powerful than any regulation. He nodded slowly and keyed his radio. Stand down. Let them through. The roar of 24 Harleys tearing through the blockade was a prayer and a threat, a symphony of defiance against the storm. They found the wall of snow just as the boy had described it. The bikes could go no further. They dismounted, grabbing flashlights and shovels, their heavy boots sinking into the snow. Ryker's heart hammered against his ribs. He saw the mangled roof of his sedan peeking out of the snowdrift like a tombstone. For a second, his breath caught, the world tilting on its axis. Then Grizz grabbed his arm. Look, over there. He pointed his beam toward the rocks. A faint, flickering orange glow, and a wisp of smoke curling into the night sky. They moved toward it, a pack of leather-clad shadows against the snow, their steps heavy with dread and hope. As they drew closer, they saw the scene. A small fire crackled weakly. Huddled beside it was Clara, wrapped in a thin, filthy blanket, her face pale in the firelight. And curled protectively beside her, trying to shield her from the wind with his own small body, was a boy. He was shivering violently, his face smudged with dirt and tears, his lips blue with cold. He looked up as the massive figures emerged from the darkness, his eyes wide with fear, the tire iron held weakly in his hand like a child's toy sword. Ryker's world stopped. He saw his wife alive. He saw the boy who had kept her that way. He dropped to his knees in the snow, the feared leader of the Hell's Angels, undone by the sight of a homeless child's impossible courage. He reached out, not to his wife, but to the boy. It's okay, son, he said, his voice cracking. We've got you. 2 days later, the clubhouse buzzed with an energy it hadn't felt in years. Clara was home, safe, with a mild concussion and a few bruises, but she and the baby were fine. The doctors had been clear. If Finn hadn't pulled her from that car, if he hadn't kept her warm, she would have died of hypothermia within the hour. The entire club knew it. They owed this child, this ghost who had appeared out of the storm, an unpayable debt. Finn sat quietly at a corner table, wrapped in a new, warm sweatshirt that was 3 sizes too big, nursing a mug of hot chocolate. He was clean, fed, and safe for the first time in memory, but he still looked like a startled fawn, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. The bikers gave him a wide berth, their usual boisterous energy muted with a kind of reverence. Ryker stood at the head of the room, his face carved from granite. Grizz stood beside him. Brothers, Ryker's voice boomed, silencing the low chatter. Every eye turned to him. You all know what happened on that mountain. You know who we have to thank for the fact that my family is still whole. He gestured toward Finn, who shrank a little under the collective gaze of 50 hardened men. That boy Finn had nothing. He lived in a hole in the rocks with a stolen blanket and a tire iron. And he risked the nothing he had to save a total stranger. He saved my wife. He saved my son. His voice grew thick with an emotion he rarely showed. The world threw this kid away. It left him to freeze on a mountain. Well, the world was wrong. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. We have a debt. In this club, we always pay our debts. But this isn't about just paying a debt. This is about who we are. We protect our own. And as of right now, Finn is our own. A low rumble of agreement went through the room. He has no family, so we're going to be his family. He has no home, so we're going to build him 1 inch. He unrolled a set of blueprints on the bar. They were for a small, 2-bedroom house. There's a condemned property on the edge of town. I bought it this morning. The structure is garbage, but the foundation is solid. We're tearing it down and building this in its place. For him, Grizz stepped forward. I've already made the calls. By tomorrow morning, every chapter in a 500-mile radius is sending men. We're going to have 400 brothers in this town. Plumbers, electricians, carpenters, roofers. We're doing this ourselves. And we're doing it fast. The room exploded. It was a roar of purpose, of brotherhood given a righteous target. This was what they were built for. Not the mayhem the world saw, but this. This fierce, unwavering loyalty. This absolute commitment to protecting the innocent. The next morning, the town awoke to a strange and thunderous dawn. A river of Harley-Davidsons, 400 strong, poured into the quiet streets, their engines a rolling earthquake. They descended on the derelict property like an invading army, but an army armed with nail guns and circular saws instead of weapons. It was a sight to behold. Men with tattoos covering every inch of visible skin, men whose scowls could curdle milk, were meticulously framing walls and running copper pipe. Grizz, a schematic clutched in one massive fist, was screaming at a group of bikers from a rival chapter about the proper way to install a P-trap under a sink. 2 hulking bikers, one with a death's head patch and the other with Road King stitched on his back, argued passionately over shades of blue for Finn's bedroom. Ryker was everywhere, hauling lumber, directing traffic, his leadership absolute. They worked from sunrise to sunset, fueled by coffee and a burning sense of mission. The townspeople watched in stunned silence, their fear of the notorious biker gang slowly turning into a kind of awestruck wonder. Finn watched it all, a silent shadow on the periphery. He'd never had anything built for him, only taken from him. He couldn't comprehend the scale of it, the sheer force of being expended on his behalf. One afternoon, Clara came to the site, a thermos of soup in her hands. She found Finn sitting on a curb, watching the controlled chaos. She sat beside him. It's a lot, isn't it? She said gently. He just nodded, his eyes wide. They're not so scary. Once you get to know them, she continued. They're just a bunch of loud, overgrown boys who found a family in each other. And now you're part of that family. She put her hand on her belly. The little guy in here, she whispered, he's going to grow up knowing your name. He's going to know that his first protector was a boy with the heart of a lion. Finn finally looked at her, and for the first time, a genuine smile touched his lips. In 1 week, it was done. Where a collapsed shack had stood, there was now a beautiful, sturdy little house. It had a new roof, fresh paint, a small porch with a swing, and a yard where the bikers had even laid down fresh sod. That evening, all 400 bikers gathered in the street outside. They stood beside their polished machines, a silent legion of leather and chrome. Ryker and Clara walked Finn to the front door. Ryker knelt down, so he was eye level with the boy. He held out a set of keys. You saved my family, Ryker said, his voice thick. You ran into the dark and brought them back to me. We can never repay that, but we can give you what you gave us. A safe place. A beginning. He pressed the keys into Finn's small hand. This is your home, Finn. Welcome to the family. Finn looked from the keys to the house, then to the faces of the 400 men watching him. He saw no pity in their eyes, only respect. Pride. He turned and, with a trembling hand, unlocked the door and stepped inside. As the door closed behind him, Ryker raised a hand. A signal, and in perfect unison, 400 V-twin engines roared to life. It was not a sound of intimidation or anger. It was a salute, a chorus of steel and gasoline, a thunderous, soul-shaking anthem of gratitude that echoed off the mountains. It was the sound of a promise kept, the sound of a boy, once lost and forgotten, finally truly coming home.